Please, build a relationship. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Next time you see a police officer, walk up to them. Let them know who you are, instead of us always letting you know who we are. And do it when you're walking into school. Say hello to the agent. Do you know who the level 3 is in your school? They're not doing it right. Remember, we work for you. I took this job for one reason. I'm looking at you, kids. And if they're not doing it right, you call me, and I'll fix it. But remember, you have to remember who to take care of on the street and outside. One person, yourself. And maybe you'll take a friend with you. And it's amazing that when that starts happening, it gets contagious. Just like a friend was killed. You have to decide, am I ready to make that decision? And if you're not, who's going to help you get there? Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me speak to you. I'll stand by afterwards if anybody wants to come over and talk. Thank you.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Did anyone write down anything you have your paper? Okay, I'm gonna go and I'm going to collect. Let me see. A lot of people believe in no snitching. However, when it hits home, everyone wants people to step up and talk. How can we make a difference if people only care when they're affected or when it's convenient for them? That just lends to the magnitude of what all of this means, okay? Of why we're here today. So, who wants to answer that question?
Is that we need a smaller community. The way we have a smaller community is by everybody knowing each other. Okay, some people don't even know their neighbor. Okay, and back to what Jock was saying, it goes down to the origin of things. It goes to the family structure. It goes down to the people in what makes up a community. So when we have a strong community where everybody knows each other, and where the commissioner said, say hello to a police officer. I tell police officers to say hello to the community because when we have the authority, it's more so. We have to take that first step, but if they don't, then say hello to them, introduce yourself, and that will create a smaller community.
Good morning. Smile. You never know, you might brighten somebody's day, you might save their life. They may have been thinking about committing suicide, but just that smile and that good morning made them turn their sadness around, and now they're like, you know what, I can do this because there's life out there. Someone just smiled at me. So those are just little things to take into consideration. If someone says you're a snitch and that they feel betrayed, this person says that, or they feel that they're not loyal to them. This person wrote that they feel great getting out of my heart because you feel yourself betrayed if you're involved in a murder or witness a crime. So I'm trying to interpret this a little bit in them meaning that the next one says no snitching. Snitch is someone who was a part of a crime but snitched on the person that was in that crime. When I know something is going to happen, I don't snitch because I don't want people to turn against me and say I'm a snitch. And that is a fair statement. And whoever wrote it, I don't know exactly who wrote it, but I commend you for being open and honest to actually share that with us. But I hope that after everything that you've heard today, that you'll be able to walk away from this forum with a different mentality, or at least start to think about it a little differently, because you're not a snitch. And anyone who's gonna call you a snitch because you told on them, then they're not really your friends. And as was said earlier, if they committed a crime and they wanted you to hold that a secret, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, because you are then a part of that crime. So even if you don't tell somebody else, if you already know that it's going to happen, you can say, look, I don't think that that's a good idea. I'm not okay with that. I don't want any part of it, and remove yourself immediately. If they don't speak out, who wants to take that? Yes.
As I stated earlier, I'm the suspension Extension Director for the Borough of Queens, grades K to 12. And the problem that we see in my office is that we have a lot of students who are being victimized. They can be robbed, they can be sexually assaulted, they can be bullied mercilessly for months on end. And there's a great fear factor. And one of the big problems that I had as a dean was I would have parents say to me, well, can you guarantee my child's safety if they come forward? The answer is no. And anybody who says they can guarantee that safety is really not giving you the straight answer. However, there's always a price to be paid. If you don't say anything and somebody else gets victimized, or you don't say anything and they come back for more for you, that becomes the problem. Because if we're not willing to stand up for us, there'll be somebody else. And then what happens is they'll keep coming, especially bullies. You give them an inch, they will take a mile. And if it's not you, it's somebody else. So what happens is, in my office, it's an administrative law office, and students are expected to come forward and state what happened to them. The big piece is that there was a great movie at one point that I used to watch over and over again with my son called The Shawshank Redemption. And there's a famous quote from that movie: "Fear will keep you prisoner, hope shall set you free." And that's something I used to speak to my students about, because there has to come a time and a place where you're willing to speak up. And I'll tell you a short story. There was a kid who was walking down the stairs and he had been being bullied all year long, and finally the bully decided to spit down the stairwell onto the kid's hair. He had spit dripping off his face. They threw books at him, they tried to push him down the stairs, and he really didn't know who was doing it because they were behind him. There were a group of girls behind him, they knew who did it, they came to my office, and they said, "Mrs. Willis, we want this to stop." Another word comes to mind, it's called empathy. They didn't really have a connection to that little boy. The only connection was that they were in the same hallway, in the same school. They had had enough. And that's what we have to look at as a family unit, as a community, that we have to finally say, it's happening to you, but I feel what's happening to you. You don't have to be my cousin, you don't have to be my sister. You're a person, and I can help you. And that's where I think sometimes we can step in and make the difference. If you're not willing to come forward, what happens is there is never any justice, because the school system and the police, their hands are tied, because without you, without that eyewitness, without those community members, there's only so much they can do. And that's really the core problem that I see for us. So I'm happy to see so many kids here. It's nice.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Officer Angel Ramos. I work in the 113th precinct. I am the Explore coordinator. Some of my explorers are here today. I work with the youth. I usually work right over there at the corner, Francis Lewis and Linden, and I speak to a lot of kids and try to have them understand a lot of things in life that they don't. And that's the thing, they don't know. But they mentioned a lot of other things that I'm not going to repeat. That's about it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Mariella Herring. I'm the Bureau Chief of the Gang Violence and Hate Crimes Bureau in the Queens District Attorney's Office. I thank you all for being here. Our office, along with NYDC, decided that it was important to hear from the community. This is an important issue, and really, it only affects the community. And it's time for this Stop Snitching Street Code to end. And let's start talking about speaking out for your community. But we do want to hear what the problems are, what the concerns are, and we are here to listen and think about what your concerns are. So I thank you, and I look forward to a good evening with you.
Hello everyone, my name is Elizabeth Park. I'm Director of Juvenile Prosecutions in the Queens DA's office, and it's really a pleasure to be here today and to see so many of you here. I just want to say briefly that, this snitching, this snitching street code, we hear so much about it, but what I would say is this, there are ways that, I understand why people may not want to do what is right, but there are ways to do it without anyone knowing that you provide the information. There are ways to do it. You know, my feeling is that we may not have all the answers. And it's funny, but sometimes the answers might just come from you. This is a start, and we're looking forward to hearing from you and hearing what ideas you will have, because I'm sure you have some excellent ideas. Thank you all for coming.
Good evening. My name is Leandra. I'm the president of the Rosedale Jets Football Association, a youth sports organization right here in Southeast Queens. I've been doing this for the last 19 years, and I'm also an attorney by trade. My first job out of law school, I worked for the Department of Correction in the law library and all of the city jails. And this was in the late 90s when there was slashings every day. There were assaults behind prison walls every day. But what fascinated me with the whole culture of the snitching street code was the fact that the folks who were snitched on, who can guess who snitched on them the most? Who could guess? Most of the criminals or detainees at the time, they snitched on themselves more than any other person could snitch on them. Did you guys hear that? Yes. Most of the detainees, when I'm reading their confessions, when I'm reading their statements, they didn't need anyone to snitch on them, in fact. They snitched on themselves. But I want to take this in another direction. We talked about snitching and what it means. I think the definition was real clear. If you're not engaged in criminal behavior or activity, you informing the authorities that there's a crime that's been committed or there's a crime that's about to be committed is not considered snitching. In fact, when I was locked up with some of the brothers and sisters at Rikers, they said, Mr. Leandra, listen, man, if someone saw me commit a crime and they telling me, that's not snitching. What snitching is, if I'm hustling with this dude right here, he's supposed to be the lookout, and he gets caught looking out for something that I was doing terrible, and then he tells on me, that's snitching. Which then brings it now to, when you think about the friends that you choose, it's very important to understand that the friends that you choose will actually determine whether or not you're going to be a snitch. In the bad way, quote unquote. And as a young leader, you have to make the tough decisions, which they call leadership decisions, so that you won't be in a place where you even witness crimes. Choose your friends very wisely. And if you choose your friends very wisely, you will never have to worry about snitching on a friend, because the friend that you choose won't be engaged in criminal activity.
Speaking, and it becomes obvious. It's an interesting situation that we're dealing with today. The show is called Focus on Solutions, and we are facing a problem in America. Right. The African American male. Mm-hmm. I consider us as endangered species, mm-hmm. because I found that in my case, my family, my religious foundation through my family, education, and work ethics was the area that gave me my foundation. Mm-hmm. I'm here with Cliff Jacobs, mm-hmm. the Deputy Executive Director of QPTV, and I wanted to ask him some questions about what happened in his life for him to get to this place, because it had to be education, it had to be religion, it had to be work ethics. So just, in your words, what happened with you or your family?
I mean, in a nutshell, I was born and raised in Harlem, in the projects, in 1954. And so I grew up during the 60s. I went to Catholic school from the 1st grade up to the 11th grade. I had both parents at home. My father had served in World War II. He was trained as a tailor, but he worked in the post office. And my mother, she worked as a teacher's aide in like elementary school. At that time, they called them